Mark and Kelly Lipton. How long has it been? Too long.
Way too long.
17 years anniversary today for Mark and Kelly Lipton, previous members of our community who deserted us for the valley, although it's our loss was their gain. It is absolutely wonderful to see you both back this morning. Say happy anniversary, Mark and Kelly, everybody.
Good to see you.
So good to see you. So good to have you folks back. And the DeCoste family, one of them anyways, deserted us for 10 weeks to travel across the country with their kids. Back here, Stacy, is it? Yeah, with a good friend and family relative. Back in church, great to see you, alive and well, and with all sorts of adventures to share with us. So we're looking forward to hearing from them. And is Al here? Did he just leave? There he is. Yeah, that's right. Al Hingley is here somewhere, and Mrs. Hingley is here. So he'll show up. Our previous minister here at Bedford United Church was here last Sunday. You're both still here this Sunday. And did you have a good week with your grandson? Wonderful. Excellent. Pictou County, yeah. Next to Cape Breton, God's country as well. Great to have you. I'm an orphan. My daughter left for university this week. So, oh yes. How many of you are going through that experience or have been through that experience? Yes, some of you have been through that, so I'll be expecting lots of hugs and kisses from you all at the door today because actually I went around throughout the weekend clearing out her room, and I am so bad. Anyways, she'll be back. She'll be back. It's been one of those weeks for me. It's not only with my daughter leaving, but I've also, you remember that, I keep forgetting, what was that movie some years ago, 3 Weddings and a Funeral or something along those lines? This has been my week. I've been saying to some of you, I've been a funeral on Thursday, a funeral on Friday, a wedding yesterday, and a wedding today. So it's just one of those weekends in the life of a pastor. And the interesting thing in terms of preparing for the funerals this past week. And you guys are going to be in this story, okay? Because one of those funerals I was involved in with is Al's mom. And I hope you got lots of hugs and kisses this week. And you're really the one who's going to need them this week. So Al, stand up so everybody can recognize you so that you'll get lots of hugs and kisses following the service. I do this, right? So give this guy lots of hugs. He can really use them this week. But in the process of being with Al and with his family and the loss of Al's mom, and also with the other family that I was involved in on Friday as well. In terms of some of my conversations with the family, it always strikes me, and it struck me again, how family members would tell me about strange and kind of mysterious coincidences that took place around and during the time of the loss of their loved ones. And it just reminded me again that mysterious coincidences are a part of our lives, and I've encountered them. So many of you tell me about these throughout the years. In your case, Al, your kids saw a couple of beautiful eagles just at the time around the death of Al's mother. This was a very significant symbol in their family that gave this wonderful sense of Al's mom and dad being reunited once again in the wider universe. In the other situation in the family, they told me about a particular flower that hadn't bloomed in a long time, and that bloomed just before in the period before the loved one died. And then the flower died instantly on the day that the loved one passed away. And they also shared with me in that story as well the situation where just at the very moment when the loved one it was a grandparent, was passing, that they got a call from their daughter. And the daughter said right at that moment, and she didn't know that her grandmother was dying, and she called her dad, who was in the hospital, and she didn't know it, and she said, "Dad, I'm feeling really, really sick." It was just one of those strange kinds of convergences and mysterious connections. And I hear these stories all the time from all of you, but particularly during significant and often crisis-laden moments in our lives. Carl Jung was perhaps the first and most famous psychiatrist and psychologist of the modern era, who really dealt with this kind of mysterious coincidence in a proactive way. And he was so impressed because he heard these stories too constantly from patients and clients that he had. And he was so impressed by this occurrence of mysterious coincidences in people's lives that he gave them a special designation, and he called them by the word of synchronicity. And synchronicity refers to events that seem to have no logical or causal connection, but that have a mysterious, meaningful connection nonetheless. They're events that there's no way in which something else could have caused them, and yet they have profound significance for one another. Okay. All of you have had that kind of experience, right? You've been thinking about somebody, and or you've been going through some particular crisis in your life when somebody calls you out of the blue who is just the person you needed to hear from just right then and there, right? So we've all had that kind of experience. Or you've been involved in some kind of a job search or something or other, and all of a sudden you get a book in the mail that somebody sends you that is just the right thing you need to know in terms of dealing with whatever it is you're dealing with. We have, or there's something in nature. Often these mysterious connections take place in nature as well. As I said, a particular flower blooms at a particular time, or you see a bird outside your window that you haven't seen for months, but it's at a very meaningful and significant moment in your life just then and there. And all of these synchronicities or mysterious coincidences seem to convey to you some kind of indication that the universe, that the wider reality of which we're a part, is somehow connecting with you and is somehow saying, "I understand." Is somehow saying, there's something deeper here than meets the eye. Mysterious coincidences or synchronicity is significant for people of faith because we see those kinds of occurrences as God's way of speaking to us, okay? So have you heard the story about Marvin? Well, I'll tell you a story about Marvin. So Marvin shows up at work on Monday morning with both ears bandaged. And his coworkers say, "Marvin, what the heck happened to you?" And Marvin says, "Well, you know, it's a crazy thing. I was watching the ball game on big screen TV on Saturday and doing my ironing at the same time. And someone called, and I accidentally reached and picked up the iron and put it to my ear." And his colleague said, "Oh, Marvin, bad luck, poor sod, for goodness sakes." Well, then said, "But what happened to the other ear?" He says, "Well, the darned idiot called back." We need to learn to listen, and the whole undertaking of faith is learning to listen a little bit more intelligently and creatively for the voice of God in our lives than Marvin certainly was, right? But in order to listen more creatively for the voice of God in our lives, particularly through mysterious coincidences, we need to have a little more contemporary and profound understanding of God, right? And so in a previous era, the way in which people explained mysterious coincidences was via recourse to the supernatural, interventionist God who is separate from the reality, from life in the universe, the God up there and out there. So that when something mysterious happens to you, some kind of mysterious connection that seems to speak to you, it's kind of God out there saying, Keith needs to get this message, so I'm going to give him this message through this particular, maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a dream, maybe it's something else, right? But today, we have a differing understanding of God than that, right? That's what we call the supernatural interventionist kind of God. And the understanding of God that makes sense of mysterious coincidences for us in today's world is what I would refer to as the immanent mystical God, right? And we've talked about that sometimes. It's the understanding that God is present everywhere, here with us all the time. In all the interactions between us, the presence of God is actually in each and every molecule of our being. And sometimes people think that's a pantheistic notion of God. That says that God is the trees and the woods and God is stones and birds. No, that's not it at all. It's what we refer to as panentheism. Marcus Borg really popularized that term a number of years ago, very, very influential writer and theologian. Panentheism suggests that God is in creation, but still something distinct from creation. So the presence of God is in us, is in the spaces between us, and is in everything, and yet God is still separate from it. But because God is in everything and in everyone and in the spaces between us, God can make these connections happen that are remarkable and mysterious and meaningful all the time. It's the notion of God that Tom shared with us, right? This understanding of God is in the Bible too, right? And it's in Psalm 139 where the psalmist says, O Lord, thou hast searched me and known me. Thou knowest when I sit down and when I rise up. Thou searchest out my path and my lying down and art acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, lo, O Lord, thou knowest it altogether. Whither shall I go from your spirit, or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend to heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in Sheol, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there thy hand shall lead me and thy right hand shall hold me. God, this is the immanent mystical God, the God who is present everywhere, in everyone, in everything, connecting all of reality to each other. I had a teacher a number of years ago who used this example as a way of getting at this notion of how the wonder of God makes remarkable things happen in reality. How many of you are biologists and have studied bees? Bees are wonderful creatures, right? And bees have been particularly designed by creation and evolution to be attracted to precisely the right flowers to pollinate, right? We all know that, right? So over the course of evolution, we know that bees have been attracted, they have learned to identify which particular flowers are the appropriate flowers to pollinate over time. And in the course of evolution, they've known where to go. But this teacher who I had some years ago said, but I want you to take a moment now not to think about pollination from the perspective of the bees. He said, I want you to think about pollination from the perspective of the flowers. How have the flowers figured out the appropriate colors to be for the bees? Now that's an interesting take. How have flowers designed themselves precisely so that they are attractive to bees, so bees would come and pollinate them? Yes, interesting kind of notion, I thought. There's a concept in systems theory and in complexity theory called emergence. And the concept of emergence suggests that complex structures emerge mysteriously and remarkably, we don't know how, but they do, out of previous separate component parts that don't share in the same complexity or qualities that the new complex structure has. So take, for example, chemistry. We all know or whoever studied chemistry knows that there are all the chemical compounds, okay? There's a whole variety of chemical compounds. And those chemical compounds, when they come together, lead to biological life. But biological life is a very, very different thing altogether. It's a much more complex, it's a totally remarkable creation that if you just take the compounds, if you just take the chemical compounds in a lab and you just put them there, you would never automatically presume out of them that the incredible capacities of life would emerge from just all these separate atomic structures and compounds. It's the same thing when you put material substances together to form life. How is it that when we create biological beings that are, made out of atoms and molecules, how does consciousness, how do feelings, how does the capacity to appreciate music and to feel love and to feel joy, how do those things emerge out of this kind of simple biological functioning structure? Scientists don't really understand that. They've been working on it, still don't have it. But they use this term emergence to designate that out of simpler components that don't participate in the same kind of qualities as the more complex structure, out of these simpler components, mysteriously very complex and remarkable structures of life and being emerge. How does that happen? Well, from a faith perspective, it's not rocket science, so to speak. From a faith perspective, it simply means that God is immanent. God is the energy and the force that underlies the quantum reality, perhaps if you want to say that underlies all of existence. This force and this energy is characterized by information. It's characterized by intelligence. It's characterized by consciousness. And it's characterized, and this is kind of a faith stance, but it's from our faith stance, it's characterized by love. And because the presence of intelligence and information and consciousness and love permeates everything, everywhere, all the time, from the tiniest atom to every single molecule to every single subcomponent of creation, because that is all. And science talks about how information permeates the whole universe. Because all of that information and intelligence and love and consciousness permeates everything all the time, it can and does, remarkably, unbeknownst as to why or how, it can facilitate connectivity and meaning and things to happen that otherwise seem totally illogically disconnected and unconnected. So if you live in a materialist, non-connected world, there's no reason that mysterious coincidences should take place. But when you live in a universe in which everything is permeated by intelligence and meaning and consciousness, and everything is interconnected, then mysterious coincidences, synchronicity, becomes quite intelligible, becomes quite meaningful. And the love component in all of that is that, and this is a bit of an extrapolation, this is a bit of a leap, but it's the leap of faith, suggests that the intelligence at the core of the universe, actually is, through these mysterious connections and synchronicitous moments, is actually intending to reach out to us, is intending to touch our lives, is intending to signify to us that, yes, indeed, as in the situation in your family, Al, there is something larger going on here. There is something much more wonderful going on here than we can ever possibly begin to comprehend, but which is real and touches us at the deepest levels nonetheless. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a good way of thinking about our faith and about thinking about this remarkable God who is at the heart of existence itself. So be it. Namaste. Amen.
You have searched me, O God, and you know me well. You know me when I sit or rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You know my words before they are. I stand in awe of your ways. Where can I go where you'll not be? Out of your presence, where can I flee? Where can I go where you'll not be? If I go to the heavens, there you are.
If I go to the heavens, there you are.
If I go to the depths, you are not far, from me. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, wherever I sing this song, oh God, your hand is guiding me. Where can I go where you'll not be? Out of your presence, where can I flee? Where can I go where you'll not be? If I go to the heavens, there you are.
If I go to the heavens, there you are.
If I go to the depths, you are not far, from me. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, wherever I sing this song, oh God, your hand is guiding me. If I go to the heavens, there you are.
If I go to the heavens, there you are.
If I go to the depths, you are not far, from me. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, wherever I sing this song, oh God, your hand is guiding me. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, wherever I sing this song, oh God, your hand is guiding me.
That was lovely, thank you. I have an idea to sing the community prayer today, if you'll give me a hand. This is a song we heard a few years ago at Folk Harbor. It's written by Susan Werner, and it's called May I Suggest. So the chorus goes like this. If you'll sing with me and then join me when it comes in the song, that would be Lovely. And it made me think of this song, Where Can I Flee Your Presence, O God? The idea that we are always surrounded by this love and light, and we just need to tune into it. And in order to tune into it, we need to be present. I'm not sure what note we'd started on, Judy, and I've been talking about singing this for a while, so just bear with me. I might have to change it. It goes like this. This is the chorus. May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. May I suggest this is the best part of your life. Lovely. Is that a little low? Okay. And it starts off that way, so please join me. May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. May I suggest this time is blessed for you. This time is blessed and shining, almost blinding bright. Just turn your head and you'll begin to see the 1,000 reasons that were just beyond your sight. The reasons why I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a world that's been addressed to you, intended only for your eyes. A secret world, a treasure chest for you, of private schemes and brilliant dreams that mesmerize. A tender lover's smile, a tiny baby's hand, the million stars that fill the turning sky at night. May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a hope that's been expressed in you, the hope of 7 generations, maybe more. This is the faith that they invest in you. It's that you'll do on better than was done before. Inside you know, inside you understand, inside you know what's yours to finally set right. May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a song, comes from the west to you, comes from the west, comes from the slowly setting sun. This is a song with a request of you to see how very short the endless days will run. And when they're gone, and when the dark descends, we'd give anything for one more hour of light. So I suggest, may I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. Thank you. Blessings. Sing it.
Please rise as you're able and join us in our closing hymn, Here I Am, Lord. Here I am, I will go if you lead Here I I will go, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. I, the Lord of wind and flame, I will tend the poor and lame. I will set a feast for them. My hand will save. Finest bread I will provide, till our hearts be satisfied. I will give my life to them. Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart.
Al Hingley to come and do the benediction for us today. Thank you.
Thank you. The 14th century German mystic theologian once said, "When you are wont to pray and you only know 2 words, thank you, it will suffice." So let us now take leave from this sacred place in a spirit of thanksgiving, that the creative God is within us and all about us, and be touched and realize your blessing in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you. God bless.